Thank you, Minister. I can only continue to stress the importance of every single Jamaican taking personal responsibility for maintaining the recommended health protocols, the orders given by the government under the Disaster Risk Management Act, and just general common sense in protecting your personal health, the health of your family, the health of your community, and indeed the nation. Aside from the individual responsibility, there is a corporate responsibility and a government responsibility, where persons who are entrusted with resources and management over others are required to exercise a higher level of diligence. The government certainly has exercised a very high level of diligence, and we continue to work very hard in the country's interest to ensure that the outbreak is contained and controlled. But as I've said earlier, it was always expected that there would be a spike. And the announcement now of 32 additional cases, Minister, 32 additional cases, when in the past the highest number we have had in any one testing would have been 6. That tells you that you are now entering into a new phase. And this is not meant to scare anyone, but indeed maybe it is that we should be scared. Maybe that is the only way that behavior is going to change. But I don't want panic. What I want is concern. What I want is for people to take responsibility. What I want is for people to listen to what the government is saying and follow the orders, the recommendations, and follow them faithfully. As I had indicated before, the government will put in place actions that are appropriate to the circumstances that we face. We therefore, having discussed the matters at length today at Cabinet, and after considering the advice of the public health team and carefully considering all the dimensions of the problem we face, the government at this point is announcing that there will be a lockdown for the parish of St. Catherine, starting at 5 a.m. Wednesday morning April 15th, 2020, through to 5 a.m. Wednesday, April the 22nd, 2020. That is a lockdown starting 5 a.m. tomorrow for the next 7 days, ending 5 a.m. on the 22nd of April 2020. What is the objective of the lockdown? The objective of the lockdown is to slow as much as possible the spread of the virus. The minister gave you some numbers as to the number of persons tested, and with 33 persons confirmed, you can use your own imagination to figure out how many persons have been contacted, the areas that people would have traveled to, and the potential spread that can come from that. So technically, you could be looking at as many as 1,000 persons contacted in close proximity. The effect of that is very great, and therefore the measure that we have to put in place is one that would seek to contain and slow the spread of the virus in a particular geographic area. The reason why we are looking at putting in the lockdown now on St. Catherine is that we have done a GIS, that is a Geographical Information Systems, mapping of the addresses of the affected persons. And we are seeing where the addresses cluster. The addresses of the 300 plus that we have already mapped have clustered mainly in St. Catherine, and parts of Kingston and St. Andrew. For Kingston and St. Andrew, we're doing further work. We have a further 300 plus addresses to map. And once we can fully identify the clusters, then other actions will be taken. So for St. Catherine, we know already that there is a massive cluster and that the spread there is particularly probable just by virtue of the existence of the call center in Portmore. People having traveled to the call center would have used public transportation, would have congregated in public areas. So there is a concentration there. So we have to start, and I want to be clear on that to the public. This measure is a start. And we're starting in St. Catherine, depending on what the other mapping of the addresses show and how the cases progress from here, then we will implement broader, tighter measures. If things go well in the sense that there is no further spread and we have contained it, then there is no need. But the government has been very responsive, very agile. As we test, as we look, as we see the data, we act accordingly. So I'm putting Jamaicans on notice that we have entered into a new phase, and as we have said before, when we are in this phase, the appropriate actions will be taken. So it shouldn't be a surprise that we are taking this action. What does a lockdown mean? Well, the first rule of the lockdown is that if you are ill with any form of flu-like illness with symptoms or any respiratory illness with symptoms, stay home. Some people don't understand that. Tana your yard. I'm sure everybody understands that. More than that, isolate yourself. Stay in a room in your house. Stay away from people as much as you can. If you are ill with any form of respiratory illness with symptoms or influenza-like symptoms, flu-like symptoms, that means you're coughing, sneezing, having a fever, stay home. You are not required to go to work. No matter how essential you are, stay home. The orders that will be in place will take the obligation of you to come to work. If you are ill, stay home. We will place an obligation on the employer that if you turn up to work, they have a duty to report you and send you home. And these obligations and duties come with a penalty. And I will be discussing penalties later on. So that is the headline. Number one, if you are ill, stay home. If you are 65 or older, stay home. Stay home. Even in a complete lockdown, there will be need for the essentials of life. Movement is only permitted for the essentials of life. Now, some people might believe that a bar is essential for life. I've seen a video circulating where there is an appeal. I'm certain that in this time of great trial for the Jamaican people, everyone understands that the essentials of life would mean, first of all, food and medicine. So you are only permitted to move to replenish your cupboard, or if you need to replenish your prescription. There is no other reason to be on the road. The AG is reminding me of another one. Well, I would put that under medicine, if you have to go and see the doctor. And then it would have to be an emergency. The police force has been so advised. How do we enforce this? Really, this should not be a matter of enforcement. Really, we should be relying on the reasonable man to take care of their own interests. But that is not always the case. All persons being on the road or in a public space, that means they are not in their private residence, must have identification. The identification should be either a government-issued ID, which would be your passport or the voter's ID or the driver's license. We would also consider IDs issued by various ministries, departments, and agencies, IDs, as long as they have a photograph which is visible. The police will exercise discretion in other areas. If you have, for example, an ID issued by a registered university, tertiary institution, or a school, the police will use their discretion as long as they can see your face matching what is on the photo ID. Why do we need you to have ID? For persons who are 65 years and older during the period of the lockdown, you will be allowed to pursue the essentials of life between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Well, let me just back up a little bit so that we're clear. The pursuance of the essentials of life will not be done every day within the 7-day lockdown. You will be allowed 2 days in which you are allowed movement to pursue the essentials of life. These are the days that we expect our citizens to be able to restock their cupboards, refill their prescription. For medical emergencies, you will be allowed as they arise. And I think everybody should understand that point. As if you have a medical emergency, it is an emergency. You go out on the road, carry your ID, explain to the officer if you are stopped. An understanding policeman using his discretion would probably be escorting you, helping you to get to the doctor, if that is possible. The 2 days for restocking would be Wednesdays and Saturdays. And I use the days in plural, which signals that though we are going for 7 days, it is likely that it could go for 14. So the plan that we have is that within the 7-day period, you will have 2 days for your restocking. So you would have Wednesday the 15th, which is tomorrow. You will be allowed to get your stock, which is only fair, seeing that it is short notice. And Saturday the 18th. Again, we think that that is fair. So, if you are 65 years or older, if you are a pregnant woman, well, I should just say if you are pregnant, and if you are otherwise abled, and I hope everybody understands what I mean, if you are a person with disabilities, then you will be allowed between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. to pursue the essentials of life. We expect you to pursue only the essentials. So I wouldn't advise that you go too far, that you go to the nearest point to get your stocks refilled and return home immediately. There is no time for window shopping, to go and meet your friend, no time for that. Just go pick up what you have to pick up, return home. If you are elderly and you're not able to go by yourself, the police and military have been advised that if an elderly person is being accompanied, that's fine. That should be encouraged, actually, as long as you're maintaining the necessary hygiene protocols, because you don't want to endanger the older population. If you are well, let me rephrase what I was about to say. So if you are not in that category of the 65 years and older, between the period of 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 15th and Saturday the 18th, and your surname begins with A to M, you can go out onto the street, preferably one person per household. We don't want everybody onto the street, one person per household with ID, to pursue the essentials of life. Again, the same advice. Go to the closest point, get the things you need, and return home as quickly as possible. If your surname is between N and Z, or Z, whichever one you prefer, between 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m., you will be expected and allowed on Wednesday the 15th and Saturday the 18th to pursue the essentials of life. And the essentials of life, again, is to go to the supermarket or the corner shop or the pharmacy or the gas station and return home. For clarity, let me repeat, therefore, the parish of St. Catherine will be under a lockdown from 5 a.m., that's tomorrow morning, Wednesday, April 15th, 2020, through to 5 a.m., Wednesday, April 22nd. During the lockdown, everyone is expected to stay in their premises. If you are ill, whether you are an essential service member or not, if you are exhibiting symptoms from flu or respiratory illness, stay at home. If you're coughing, sneezing, sniffling, cold, fever, stay at home. Tan at your yard. More than that, isolate yourself. You are allowed to pursue the essentials of life, but this has to be done in an orderly way to limit movement during this period of time. 2 days are allowed for you to pursue the essentials of life. Wednesday the 15th and Saturday the 18th. You will pursue the essentials of life in the following way. If you are 65 years and over, if you are pregnant, or you are a person with disabilities, you can go to your pharmacy, to your supermarket, to your corner shop, purchase the items that you need, and return home. And that is between the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. If your surname begins with A through to M, and you are below 65 years of age, then between 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m., you can pursue the essentials of life. If your surname begins between N and Z, between 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m., you can pursue the essentials of life. Everyone who is going to venture on the road or into a public space must take with them some form of identification. That identification must bear a picture, It must be either a government-issued ID, which could be your passport, or your driver's license, or the electoral ID, the national electoral ID, or an ID issued by the any ministry of government, department, or agency of government. The police will use their discretion as it relates to other forms of identification. For example, IDs issued by registered universities or schools, or a recognizable institution of public note. In this regard, whenever you are in the public within St. Catherine during the period of the lockdown, you must wear a mask. I'm putting it in this way. The requirement, when it is probably written in the Gazette, will be that you must have your nose and mouth covered. It could be a mask, it could be a scarf, but whatever it is. And I'm seeing some very innovative designs taking shape now. I'm seeing them right inside this room. You must wear a mask. You must cover your nose and mouth in public. All the social distancing rules apply. And the Gazette, when published, will specify that there is now a duty. There always was, but we will be much clearer in it. A duty on those businesses that are allowed to remain open. There will be a duty on them to make prescriptions, define space for people to stand and form lines in order to access service, which means that there will be defined spaces 3 feet or more apart that each person can occupy to get service. This is all new to Jamaica. And I know it is not going to be easy for people to comply. Some people will see it as a tremendous imposition, a tremendous burden. But I just want you to stop for a moment and reflect on what has happened. We have been going quite nicely all along. And just one instance, and you see the numbers balloon. People haven't been taking it seriously. This is a dreadful disease. It has taken many lives, and Jamaica is particularly risky in terms of our population health profile, with many NCDs which weaken our immune system and exposes us. Obesity, diabetes, heart conditions, respiratory conditions, hypertension, all of those are prevalent in our society. And so the uncontrolled spread of this disease, in addition to having to treat all of those conditions, would place our health system under severe stress. We don't want to have to make the decision, as other countries have had to make, who lives and who dies, who gets on a ventilator and who doesn't, who gets a bed and who doesn't. But if our citizens don't act responsibly, then that is the burden that you would thrust upon the government to determine your life, when you can literally determine the outcome of your life by being responsible. So we have had to take this drastic action. Today I had a virtual meeting with the BPO Association. Now let me say from the outset that not all operators of BPOs are members of the association. They all fall under regulatory authority, the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority. But the group that I was able to meet with at short notice, having just gotten this information, was the BPO Association. Generally, by and large, from the reports that we have received, most of their members have been following the recommended protocols. They have established protocols that are higher than the recommended protocols. In fact, I was pleased to learn that they have moved 26% of their employment to work from home arrangements. They have, the BPO sector employs close to 40,000 persons, and they have moved over 10,000 persons into work from home arrangements. They are looking at other mechanisms. But it is clear that there are some operators who were not following protocols, who were not faithful in observing protocols. What we will have to do as a government, because this is now a matter of national importance, it is a matter of ensuring compliance. I have asked the Commissioner of Police to thoroughly investigate, along with the Health Department, the circumstances under which this outbreak took place, and to pursue charges under the Disaster Risk Management Act. We cannot take this thing lightly, and consequences must fall where we can establish culpability. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'll ask you want to make the... Right, the Attorney General is reminding me that the general curfew, which we announced, that continues. And remember, because of the good behavior of the majority, and we see where persons are complying, and we want to encourage economic activity in a managed and controlled way to get that balance between lives and livelihood. We increased the functioning time between the curfew hours. So now the curfew hours generally for the entire island is now from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. However, if things change If results come back in a way that suggests that the outbreak is moving more rapidly and more intensively than we had expected, then we will have to make other arrangements. But for now, these hours stand. Just to be clear as well, markets will be closed in the parish of St. Catherine. We will be looking at all BPO operations. We have asked the Ministry of Health. I know you have done your inspections already, but I think we are going to do some more intensive inspections, and we're going to re-examine the protocols that are in place to see if we can't put in even tighter protocols. But generally, within the parish of St. Catherine, to be clear, almost all commercial activities will come to a halt for 7 days. There should be no unnecessary movement in that parish for 7 days. Well, except, of course, those that I have noted, for the essentials, to pursue the essentials of life. And those will be noted and quite clearly defined when we publish the Gazette. But corner shops, supermarkets, pharmacies, those will remain. Hospitals, health centers, those will remain open. The essential services, those members of the essential services will be allowed to move with the display of ID. They will be allowed to move out of the lockdown zone to go to their work. However, everyone should note that all entry and exit points out of the parish are now checkpoints. And the police are now equipped with laser, what was the appropriate term? Temperature meters, temperature check meters, and they will be able to take your temperature. And if your temperature is above the accepted levels, then you will not be allowed to leave the checkpoint, and indeed you will be, the Ministry of Health will be alerted, and they will do the necessary protocols from there to ensure that you are not someone who is positive with the coronavirus. So you're only subject to move, or you're only allowed to move, if you don't have symptoms. Let me just say that again. So you might be a policeman, a fireman, a nurse, but if you are ill with symptoms that are flu-like or respiratory illness symptoms, you must stay home. That is the critical thing at this moment. If you are ill, stay away from the healthy population. If you are in the vulnerable group, as far as possible, stay away from the general population, because there may be persons in the general population who could get you ill. And the healthy population, stay in as much as possible, limit your movement, and that will limit the spread of the disease. All right, so I'll leave it there for now. There are many matters that people have asked questions about, including what the government can do about rent and landlords. I have some persons here who would be better able to answer your questions. The Minister